Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to VTA's BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 Community Working Group for 28th Street, Little Portugal. I'd like to welcome everyone into the room, and we'll just wait a minute or so for people to filter in and load up their Zoom. Okay, we've got a good number of people coming in. So, Kristen, do you want to fire up the presentation? All right, and let's get going to the next slide. So welcome to everyone that has joined us. We've got a good number of people in the room. As you can see from today's agenda, we've got a pretty packed amount of information to share with you. We've got about 90 slides. So I'm just going to ask that for tonight, where possible, this afternoon rather, where possible, try to keep your questions and comments as focused as possible. We will try to get to them in today's meeting. And if we can't, we promise to follow up and get responses back to you in our follow-up email. So we're going to give you a great updates on what's going on with the project. We're going to share with you information about project delivery. We're going to dive into the look and feel of the station. We've got some interesting fly-through videos to share with you on that. We've got an update on station access planning. We have people here from VTA Real Estate and the City of San Jose to talk about the Five Wounds Urban Village Plan and the 28th Street Design Development Framework. Gretchen will share updates on community engagement, and then we'll dive into our CWG member report back. So in the room tonight, you've got myself, Joe Clayton, and I'll be filling in for Kate Christopherson, who is on some well-deserved leave. In addition, we've got Kristen May driving the presentation, Gretchen Beiser, who will be sharing information about community engagement. We've got Erica Rokes. We've got John Caulfield, Doug Moody, Peter Solokoff, Jesse O'Malley-Solis, and then Charlotte Gomez as well from the City of San Jose. All right, let's keep going. So I'm sure everyone's familiar by now with how we run these things with Zoom. And so everyone's going to be on mute until I unmute you. You can let me know you'd like to be unmuted by putting your hand up using the raise hand feature, or by putting a question in the Q&A box. And so that Q&A box should be at the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in on a landline, which I can see one or two people are, you can press star and then 9, and that will raise your hand, and we'll understand that you want to have a chat. We're going to devote about 2 minutes per question comment. And as I said, if we can try to keep the comment related to the agenda item, and where possible, let's just make sure that others have an opportunity to speak before raising your hand again or diving into a follow-up question. There we go. Upcoming meetings, we've got the next CWG in November. We also have the VTA Board of Directors meeting on October 7th and October 4th. And as always, we'll send you out email alerts if there are other meetings that might be of interest or relevance, such as board workshops. Okay, so unfortunately, as I said, Kate's not here tonight with us, so I'm going to have to try to do her justice with the follow-up items. Okay, so this has been a question that we get a fair amount. So can you provide more information on how VTA coordinates with nearby construction? And so our team tracks and coordinates and looks into all the new developments that are coming up. And that includes coordinating with both of the cities of San Jose and Santa Clara. We also work with VTA's land use and transportation integration teams so that we're providing coordinated comments to the city on some of those proposed developments that come up. We also, from time to time, coordinate with some of those developers just to make sure that we understand what their impacts are and what our impacts are. We've had questions about station access, and that's on today's agenda. There's a great presentation coming up on that, so stay tuned. And then provide update on Five Wounds Trail coordination. So VTA is continuing to work with the city, county, and the Open Space Authority, and an update will be coming when one is available. Any questions? So just to remind everyone, our CWG members get first go. I can see that Danny has his hand up, so I'm going to allow him to talk. There you go, Danny.
So for years, I've been in construction, 30 years, right? Now we're gonna go down 90 feet. So after 60 feet is potable water. How are drinkable water? How are we gonna reclaim that water that's gonna be pumped out due to construction? Because being a water district ambassador, water ambassador, I can't see us pumping water into the gutter to go down to the creek. How are we going to reclaim that water? That's a question for the future. But speaking of construction, let's start thinking about it.
Okay, Danny, thank you for that. I'm not sure we have anyone in the room who can speak directly to that. So we're definitely an answer on that one and get some more information hopefully for the next CWG meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries, thank you. All right, any other CWG members have comments or questions about those follow-up items? Okay, not seeing any, I think we can keep going. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Erica.
Thanks, Joe. I'm Erica Rokes. It's nice to see so many familiar names here today. Today, I'm going to give an update on the Phase 2 project. Next slide, please. Light rail is back. VTA is happy to announce that light rail is back and running with orange, green, and blue line services restored. Through this process, VTA is working to make sure the system is safe and running smoothly. Just a reminder to always follow the warning signs, signals, and the crossing gates. There's a lot of internal work that's going on with agencies related to the project at this time, so I'm going to give a few highlights related to that. The real estate acquisition process is well underway as negotiations continue for key properties that are required for project elements, as well as for field offices, which are planned to open before construction begins by late 2022. VTA and BART have been working together to finalize the design criteria requirements manuals that will be included in the final procurement documents. In addition, VTA has executed the first cooperative agreements with the cities of San Jose, Santa Clara, and Caltrans after the master agreements were initially executed. And VTA, FTA, and the project management oversight contractor, PMOC, also continue to hold weekly coordination meetings. We have some exciting news. On July 28th, the FTA executive director advised VTA's GM CEO, Carolyn Gronat, that VTA and Congress expect to hear imminently regarding the project's application selection. Project selection would mean that VTA would receive full pre-award authority to incur costs for engineering activities, utility relocations, acquisitions, construction, and other non-construction activities. In addition, if FTA recommends a letter of intent, Congress would have 30 days to review and approve. And following approval, VTA anticipates receiving a letter of intent from FTA by October. So we should have more information at our next meeting in November. Currently, all 4 contract packages are going through engineering and procurement processes, and the RFQs for all of the contract packages have now been released, with the Santa Clara and New Hall Yard RFQ request for qualifications having been released a couple of weeks ago. RFPs are underway, the request for proposal, with the tunnel final RFP being released this month in September, followed by the systems RFP being released in October, the underground stations RFP being released in February of next year, and the Santa Clara and New Hill Yard RFP being released in March of next year. So the current site plans are posted online, and we haven't talked about them for a while. And so I wanted to walk you through them to kind of refresh your memory. As you see on the left, the site plan shows the underground platforms in green and the refined entrance location at the south end of the station platforms in purple, which you can also see in the rendering on the right that was developed as part of the public engagement process related to the look and feel of the stations that Peter and Doug will cover in a little bit. In addition, the red line surrounding the area is the construction and staging area. And both vehicular and bicycle facilities at the station, as well as the connection to the future Five Wounds Trail, will be provided. The downtown station will be on Santa Clara Street with the main station entrance between Market and First Streets, the secondary entrance between First and Second Street, and ventilation and egress facility near the corner of Third and Santa Clara Street. The rendering on the right is looking from the south side of Santa Clara Street at the main station entrance. There'll be bicycle parking and convenient connections to VTA light rail and bus services on Santa Clara First and Second Street. The Diridon station will be between Montgomery and Cahill Streets on the south side of Santa Clara Street. The rendering on the right is from Santa Clara looking south to the main station entrance. Ticketing, fare gates, and bicycle facilities will be at street level, with the station's concourse and stacked platforms will be underground, similar to downtown. And the Santa Clara station will be adjacent to the Santa Clara Caltrain station and the future Gateway Crossings residential development. The rendering on the right is taken from the angle of where the picture of the historic Caltrain depot is on the site plan, looking at the station with Brokaw Road on the left side of the rendering. The at-grade station platform is shown in green. In addition, the station will also include parking, bike facilities, and a connection to Caltrain Capital Corridor, Altamont Corridor Express, and several VTA bus lines on the west side of the tracks. Unlike the other three stations, the Santa Clara Station concourse will be elevated, and the platform will be at ground level, similar to the Warm Springs station. The elevated concourse will provide access to the at-grade platforms over the adjacent BART storage tracks. And that's the phase 2 update we have for this time. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Erica. Just as a reminder, our CWG members get first go at questions. I'm not seeing any raised hands or in the Q&A box. Oh, Bill Rankin, come on down.
Hi, yeah, thanks. Just had a question about the downtown station and Diridon station. Are there going to be entrances to BART on either side of Santa Clara?
There will be at the downtown station, the entrances will be on the north side of the street, and at the Diridon station, the entrances will be on the south side of the street. At the downtown station, we are accommodating for a future connection to the south. That would be a separate project that is not part of this federal funding. And there are no plans for a connection to the north at the Diridon station.
So people coming out of the arena will have to cross Santa Clara Street at grade?
Correct.
Boy, that's gonna really jam up traffic a lot. I hope you guys can, I'll keep asking about this. I hope you guys can think more about that. Thank you.
Dude. Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, not seeing any other hands up. Oh, Justin, there you go.
Thank you for presenting, and thank you for letting me talk. I am Justin from Ride ESSJ, bicycle advocate at Eastside. So we learned in the 28th Street where there was proposed bicycle parking on site, there was quite a substantial space for it. Can you tell me a little bit about the downtown one and like where there's going to be bicycle parking there? Is it going to be inside, on the back? Is there any more development to that and like the Diridon station and how much and what that'll look like?
Yes, so actually I'm gonna, later in the presentation, I'm gonna give a brief update on access and circulation and kind of the process we've come to, but those details with the specifics of bike parking locations and such, I'll be back in November to talk through, as we're still working through that, finalizing that with the cities right now.
Okay, yeah, we just learned about it yesterday, actually, of this new proposed space in the 28th Street. So that's why it kind of popped up. Thank you for answering.
Sure thing.
All right, let's keep going. Thanks, Erica.
Hello,
Welcome.
I'm John Caulfield, and I'm the Contract Package 2 Tunnel and Track Work Project Manager on VTA's BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 Extension Project. I have over 35 years of experience with tunneling, including the 5-mile single-bore tunnel underneath the San Francisco Bay for the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. I'm now going to explain to you how the VTA is going to deliver this project. VTA is delivering its BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 project in 4 contract packages, also known as CPs. CP1 is systems, and it focuses on system-wide train control and rail communication systems. As the largest valued contract, CP2, the tunnel and track work package, includes the procurement of a very large 48-foot diameter tunnel boring machine, excavation and lining of the tunnel, and 3 underground stations, as well as the track work, portals, and 2 mid-tunnel facilities. CP3 is specific to Newhall Yard and Santa Clara Station, which includes the maintenance yard and facility, storage tracks, ground level Santa Clara Station, and parking garage. Finally, CP4 covers stations and includes 28th Street, Little Portugal, downtown San Jose, and Diridon stations. The contract package also covers mechanical, electrical, and plumbing aspects of the 3 underground stations. CP1 and CP2 are set to begin in mid-2022 and go until early 2028 and 2029, while CP3 and CP4 are both set to start in late 2023 and go through mid-2028. Revenue service is scheduled to begin in the year 2030. The project delivery method for CPs 1, 3, and 4 is design build. This means that architectural design and construction services for each fall under a single contract and have a single point of management, with the design beginning with a 30% package prepared by the owner and the remaining design left to the builder in accordance with owner-defined criteria and standards. Design build allows for simplified procurement processes and better integration of the design and construction phases. This also means the design and construction teams are formed prior to the proposal stage. The cost of design build is competitive, but the main driver is its faster project delivery. Since construction can begin in parallel with design build can provide significant time savings. According to a 2018 study by the Construction Institute, design build projects had 102% faster delivery speed than the more traditional design bid build. Cost is also known when the contract is awarded. After selection, the design build contractor uses their skills and expertise to complete and build the project. VTA's role is to oversee their work. Progressive design build is the project delivery method for CP2. The process is similar to design build, but contracts are made with the design build contractor at an even earlier stage in the project's development, utilizing about 10% design definition, and the contractor selection is mainly based off of qualifications. Due to the contract size and complexity, a high level of collaboration and input from VTA, BART, and the progressive design build contractor is required throughout the design phase and construction phase. This helps avoid creating a design that is either too expensive and/or challenging to build. This process also creates a transparent and iterative open book cost evaluation estimate, maximizing innovation and limiting project risk. Since progressive design build helps identify and mitigate issues early, CP2 will benefit this project delivery method as it allocates risks appropriately and welcomes an open and collaborative environment between both VTA, BART, and the contractor. The project's progressive design build process will include two main stages. Stage 1 will include collaboration between the progressive design build contractor, VTA, BART, the City of San Jose, and the community. It is in this phase that pre-construction design will be advanced from 10% to 90%. The bulk of pre-construction activities and some limited preparatory early work will also be included in this process. This will also include starting the procurement of the TBM, which will be specifically manufactured for the project and will take over a year. During stage 2, the progressive design build contractor will provide a proposal that includes construction costs, schedule, and risk mitigations. Stage 2 will follow the construction process through the completed design. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about VTA's BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 and how the VTA plans to deliver the largest public works infrastructure project in Santa Clara County's history.
Thanks, John. Do we have any questions from CWG members? Feel free to raise your hand. And I'll just check the Q&A box. Okay, not seeing any come in. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate you joining us this evening. All right, at this point, I'm going to hand over to Doug and Peter Solikov.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to the 28th Street Little Portugal Station CWG for having us here tonight. We're here to talk a little bit about the look and feel of the stations. So that this group, almost everyone on the call, the CWG members, the larger email list, and a lot of other folks should have gotten an email notification and seen out in other places, information about a social pinpoint on online community feedback platform that shared, the look and feel elements of the station and asked for some feedback. And then also we hosted some pop-ups. So we have there's 3 parts to the presentation tonight. I have an overview of the process, and I'll pass it over to Peter to describe the concepts that were shared with the public. And then I have a summary of, the feedback that has been received to date on those look and feel elements. So where did the concepts presented to the public for the look and feel elements come from? Well, they were developed with the project team developed them, then they were talked through with design review committees. So design review committees, I have the membership here on the next slide. And the members were really selected, because they represent organizations that are embedded in the community. It was meant to be, a back and forth conversation, right? So they represent large swaths of people, bring that input to us so we can talk through the elements, and then those folks can share that back with their community members. So The design review committee created a forum for community leaders and local government partners to provide input into BART Phase 2 project team for selected visual elements of the station. We've had monthly meetings from June to September. So the last round of design review committee DRC meetings is actually, it's happening right now, it's this week. And they helped to shape the look and feel elements that were broadly shared with the public for review and feedback. So these are the design review committee working group members or representatives from these organizations for the 28th Street Little Portugal Station. The Five Wounds Brookwood Terrace Neighborhood Action Committee, Neighborhood Advisory Committee, Action Committee, Riot East Side San Jose, Roosevelt Park, the Five Wounds Portuguese National Parish, and from the City of San Jose. There's 3 representatives from the City of San Jose, from the Department of Transportation, Public Works, and the Department of Cultural Affairs. So what's included? What's the scope of the elements that were considered? As part of this process. So some of the things that weren't part of the process, the layout and configuration of the core station components, was not part of the scope for this effort. It's not what we asked for feedback on or concept or presented regarding. Nor was transit-oriented development, also known as TOD. That's really a companion effort being led by VTA Real Estate. And station access wasn't part of the look and feel element processes later. That's a separate complementary process. That's on the agenda for the meeting later today. And the entrance of and locations of the fair entrance locations and the fair gates weren't part of the process either. Nor was the selection of public art. However, identifying areas for where public art should go was part of it. The process generally focused on the average user. What is their visual experience, right? So what is the palette of architectural material finishes? How are the canopies designed? What do the entrance areas look like? What's the average user's experience entering and leaving the station? Next slide, please. So the the process for the look and feel elements of the station. So we're entering into the finishing stages of it. We had those 4 round of DRC committee meetings. We had the broad public engagement that we're currently summarizing the info from. And so the accumulation of this work goes into a report that will be entered into the RFP for design build contractors. And then after that, that RFP is wrapping up here very soon. And then after that, there's a few months of work that happen, right? So there's internal review with the VTA / BSV project team. And then the RFP is reviewed with the city of San Jose for this particular station, and the BART team, where they have an opportunity to comment. And then comments are addressed, and the RFP is finalized. And then the RFP for the design build contractors for the station is released in the first half of 2022 with that report. The focus is on the findings from this work for what the design, what the look and feel elements of the station should be. And with that, I'll pass it over to Peter to talk about some of the concepts that were shared with the public.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for hosting us. I think most of the material here, if you've been to the Social Pinpoint website, you would have seen, but I'm just going to talk you through some of the materials. This is a fly-through of the station at 28th Street, Little Portugal. So you're entering here and just gone through the fair gates. We have a circular canopy which lets natural light down into the lower parts of the station. You can see one of our locations for public art up there at the top of the escalators. And then you come down to a intermediate landing, down to a second run of escalators as you head down to the concourse. And then this is, as you'll see in the presentation that follows, a second location for public art. And again, these aren't the art pieces themselves, just the locations that we're talking about. This is the concourse level, and these stairs lead you down to platform level. So in the fly-through, we're just going to pick one of those to come down onto the platform. 28th Street is 2 side platforms, so side loading platforms with trains down the middle. And this is now kind of looking back at platform level. And again, the fly through is really just to kind of give you an overview of the configuration of the station so you understand how the spaces fit together. And then this presentation kind of goes into some of the material selections and the content from the design review committee work that we had done up to the point of the social pinpoint, just to give you an overview of that. So again, here you'll see the scope of the design review was really about the look and feel of the station, the materials, floor and wall finishes, and the locations for future art. You go to the next slide. So this image shows the entrance to the station, and you'll see on the right-hand side one of the topics in the design review committee was about finding locations for musicians and public sort of performances. Because of BART requirements, doesn't happen in the paid fare area, so we've chosen a specific location that's in the plaza for those that performance space, and that would have special treatment in the paving for the Calzada Portuguesa stone treatment that would sort of make that a very special and unique place within the plaza. And then paving going up to the station entrance. And then as you enter the station, another thing that evolved, we had a few different options for floor treatments. This one, again, it's a terrazzo floor, but it has that Calzada Portuguesa pattern, which is sort of a reference to both the local community and the cathedral, and it also helps to identify and give the station kind of unique identity. And then if you go to the next slide, we also had kind of a option which was a more typical terrazzo floor. It's more neutral, and some people felt a bit calmer, and it also kind of has a bit more of a reflective quality, so lets more light into the station. And similarly, those two options just playing out down at the concourse level, both the pattern floor and then the more typical terrazzo. And then if you go to the next slide, the same down at the platform level. And I think there was a lot of positive feedback on the social pinpoint about the pattern floors, and especially down at platform level, where it can be sort of an identifier for the station, where if you just look out the doors when they open, you kind of know exactly which station you're at. So we're still working through that. We did get some feedback from BART about the technical aspect of having the pattern floor, which we have to work through. But that was definitely one of the key areas of feedback from the social pinpoint, was getting people's view on that. You go to the next slide. The second sort of topic of discussion was the treatment of these pavilions that are at the backside of the station head house at ground floor level. So the front of the station was what you saw in the previous image, which faces onto the plaza. That's quite open, but there's a lot of technical rooms and spaces that need to be enclosed that are on this backside. So the cladding and the wall treatment of those, we had a few different options. This one was mirroring the kind of terracotta color from the church. This one is, again, kind of a more neutral choice. And we got lots of different opinions and feedback on both of those. Go to the next slide. And then the third topic was the location for the art. And I mentioned this as we went through the fly through, the three potential locations. One that draws you into the station at ground floor level. So as you're at the top of the escalators, you look across at a piece of art. And then one as you're going down the escalators, and then the third one at the end of the concourse. And I think all of those are great opportunities for art that would be selected sometime in the future, but would be planned as part of the station design, so that we can coordinate those locations for lighting and other elements. And then the last topic was the canopy itself and the treatment of the ceiling. Here you'll see that we are proposing having these radial elements that are almost like indicators. They emphasize the the circular entrance and the oculus with light coming down through the middle, but they also can act as wayfinding, more kind of not the official BART wayfinding that will tell you where to go for the platforms, but kind of more landmarks of the community, like the Five Wounds Church and the trail, just to kind of, again, celebrate the area and make a connection between the station and all the surrounding destinations, and that those could be changed over time. They're not fixed into the building fabric. They're panels that could always be switched out. And they also have a practical aspect in that they can help us routing sprinklers and devices and other things that need to be in the ceiling. So they serve both a sort of practical purpose and a feature of the station at the same time. Next.
Thank you very much, Peter. So community engagement. So I want to talk a little bit about how we shared these concepts with the public, the feedback we've been receiving, how it'll be used, and then talk a little bit about next steps. So as I mentioned before, we shared these concepts broadly. There was the social pinpoint, community feedback platform, and pop-ups. And we sent a lot of notifications out to a lot of folks about these opportunities to provide feedback. Right, we notified the VTA board and internal VTA staff. We let the cities San Jose and Santa Clara know, both council offices and communication staff. Those design review committee that I was mentioning before, we sent that out to those groups, right? So the working group members and the city staff that were participated in that and asked them to share widely with their networks. We also, everyone on the community working group should have gotten email and, went to the larger list that community, the CWG email to go to. We also sent it to the VTA BSV project-wide email list and put it on social media. So on Twitter, I also saw it posted by at least 2 council members, Councilmember Carrasco and Councilmember Perales. Next slide, please. So just a little report back on some of the engagement. So we did 5 pop-ups, at least 1 in each station area. So we did one at the Alum Rock Village Farmers Market, which was the one probably most relevant to this station, and another one at the Farmers Market on Fridays at SOFA. And these are just some photos from those events, right? So a lot of people came out, got some good feedback, good interaction. Next slide, please. And the social pinpoint site, you can kind of see here some of the feedback that that people were using the site. I have some numbers here on how many people interacted, but to kind of reiterate what Peter was saying earlier, you can see there on the previous slide all those likes on the Portuguese tile. So statistics, there was these numbers. They're a little bit more updated. Overall, the survey homepage for all 4 stations, we've had about 2,000 unique users interact with it. All the other stations, between 200 and 400 people have interacted with, around over 270 for the survey page for the 28th Street Little Portugal station. Over 50 comments were left by members of the community about the station, and over 60 survey responses. Next slide, please. So how is the feedback we received going to be used? Well, so as I mentioned, we're in the process of summarizing that. And the summary of that then goes into the report I was describing that goes into the RFP for the design build contractors. And we'll also summarize that, the content in the report, and post that up on the website, including responses to other feedback received. I'll describe that in a little bit, but there were specific questions that we were asking as part of this process, things that are in scope, and we got a lot of feedback related to that. We also got a lot of feedback on things that are not in the scope of this particular effort, the look and feel elements of the station. But that feedback has been really helpful, right? It helps us really understand what questions are out there in the public, what issues exist in the public conscience, right? So we think there's some instances where, it's helpful for us to educate the public, right? There might be some misconceptions out there that we need to provide some more info on. Or there's also info we can consider as parts of the project, other parts of the project that aren't look and feel elements, things that we might be able to incorporate that. And so we tend to have, the summary posted up on the website, and there'll also be a report out on these issues at the public meetings that are scheduled, the broad project-wide public meeting scheduled for late October, early November. So some of the comments we received that are relevant to the station look and feel effort. We've heard there should be more greenery. I can confirm that the project intends to include more greenery than was shown in the images that were shared broadly with the public. We were focusing more on, the structural elements and the treatments for those, but confirm that that will be included. It's also a project requirement. We also heard there should be more shade, especially on walkways and where there's parking. I can also confirm that the project is providing hookups for solar panel on structured parking, not the solar panels themselves, but the equipment needed for the solar panels to plug into. We also heard that we should further include and integrate wayfinding. Some of that's included, and we're exploring how to do that more. Include more color and/or art, including on the structural elements. We're considering that for multiple stations. Some feedback on sustainability, so strategies to retain stormwater, use sustainable materials, providing abundant places to sit, especially outside the station, but that seating outside the station should not accommodate sleeping. I saw we had a question in the chat about seating being provided. Will there be seating provided on the concourse level? And I'll leave that to Peter to answer here in a little bit in the Q&A section. I think he has some more insight into that than I do. And we also got a lot of good recommendations for how art should be selected in the future, right? Processes and things to think about when selecting it, which is good, relevant feedback. Selecting art isn't part of this process, but it's definitely information we can carry into the next rounds when our process to select art begin. So the specifically relating to the 28th Street Little Portugal station, there was quite a bit supportive feedback, right? A lot of people liked a lot of the things they saw. They liked the design elements that were inspired by Little Portugal. A lot of people really liked how that translated into the tiling that was shown, and other features, right, like the terracotta on the roof. And then there was this really great picture shown from a station in London that has a similar circular concept to the 28th Street Little Portugal station, which we all thought was fun. It also shows, so one of the things that Scott is thinking about too, about us sharing with the public in future rounds is, or in future work, digging deeper into in future work is probably the right way to say that, is the lighting related to this, right? So how is the lighting design for the station? What does the station look like at night? Next slide, please. We also received constructive feedback. We heard, although people did like how there was the Portuguese design elements integrated in the station, they thought that could be done better. We heard comments like the tiling shown looks dated. And we also heard comments about the entrance could be incorporated into a building to make it standalone. So yeah, constructive feedback as well. And so some relevant comments that we think we can really act on. People like the Portuguese design treatments, continuing to carry those forward, see what opportunities there are for those. We heard that the plain flooring is calming and looks modern, and that perhaps the tiling should be more of an accent than covering the whole floor. So we're taking that feedback. We're exploring options to integrate concepts like those, but actually which can often pair well with BART facility requirements. Next slide, please. So what are the next steps? We're summarizing the findings right now. We're working on developing updated concepts based on the feedback that we heard, to summarize that into the report that I described earlier that goes into the package for design build contractors, the design build contractor for the stations in San Jose. We'll develop a summary of that, post that up on the website, so everyone can see what the feedback we received was, how we responded to it, and have some answers to the really helpful other issues that were raised during this process. And then the RFP then gets reviewed with both the city of San Jose and BART. And then, after it's finalized, then it's released in the first half of 2022 to potential design build contractors. And that is all we have. And we will stop there and open it up for questions.
All right, Doug, since you previewed the seating question, shall we start it on that one?
Yeah, sorry, I was going to answer it in the chat, and then I realized I had pressed the wrong button and said I would answer it live. So I'm happy to answer it live also. Yes, both things like the furnishings and landscape, and some other things are not in the renderings at this stage, but the intention is to have them there. So there will definitely be seating at the concourse level, and also down at the platform level that's just not shown in those views. So the views do look a bit Spartan, but in the future there definitely will be seating there. And likewise, I think with some of the comments on the external views, there will be landscaping. It's still early stages of development right now.
Okay, great, thank you. Is it going to be stairways down the 3 levels to get to the trains, or are there going to be escalators?
There will be stairs and escalators. Yeah, there's two runs of escalator, like it can't be one long escalator, so there's 2 smaller escalators with a landing, and then there's also stairs right next to them, and there's elevators as well.
We've had a comment talking about how they do it in Greece, that at most of their public transportation points, there are lots and lots of art on the walls, and it relates specifically to the culture and feel of that area. So we'll take that as comment. Thank you. And that seems to line up with what we've been hearing otherwise in the DRC process too. Can you share what the name of the station in London was that was inspiring?
According to the poster on the social pinpoint, it's the Southgate Underground Station. And, so I think that's it. I don't know personally. Peter, you might be able to confirm that.
I don't know it personally either, but it was nice to see it as a reference.
All right. How can design of the station include opportunities for vision and mobility impaired people in terms of wayfinding?
I think that's a good question, and something that we're always kind of trying to find the answers to, is to make the stations as accessible as possible. So I think any way that we can use either, surface treatments or materials for people who are visually impaired to get orientation, and the design of the station, I think what we're trying to do really is make it as easily accessible as possible through making sure that the circulation and the paths of travel are easy, which is not always simple in an underground system. But the ideal aspiration is to really make the design as both as welcoming and accessible as possible to everyone. So I don't have a great scripted answer to that. I think it's quite a complex question, but it's something that definitely we're thinking about and trying to be inclusive in the way that we're thinking about the station.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. All right. Justin has his hand up. Over to you, Justin.
Thanks for answering. Yeah, I just want to, I guess, describe to the community as well some of the things that the design group had interacted with the process as well. And there were a few things that we had challenged the group to find alternatives to, or that we were uncomfortable with, and they did go back and present us some other options. So we were able to do that, which I did appreciate. Also, the things that we would tell them, that we would challenge them on, they would need to take back to BART, and BART would also present maintenance issues, as well as that so we all had to find certain compromises and able to get the design that it is now. So I just want to say I appreciated that process, and we did throw some challenges, and so thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Justin. I appreciate that. Is there an opportunity for food services, vending machines, spaces for tabling by community organizations or similar?
We definitely have done some diagrams that showed potential locations, but I think it's probably going to be at the next stage of design where that gets further refined. But certainly the concourse level is an area we identified that could, potentially be an area people set up tables, or I think we call them like First Amendment spaces that could be used. So both outside of the paid fare zone in the plaza, we tried to identify some locations not within like the main circulation flow, but just next to it where that could happen. And then I think within the paid fare zone, again, just as much as BART allows it to happen, that I think the concourse would be the place we would identify, because it's the upper ground floor level is pretty constrained in terms of space.
Great, thanks, Peter. Any other CWG members have any comments or questions? Feel free to raise your hand. David, over to you.
Can you hear me? This laptop's been giving me some problems lately.
We can hear you.
Yep. Okay. One thing that I took away from just the most recent DRC review meeting was that it seems that VTA is going to be at odds with BART over some of the materials and in essence some of the designs for what we saw here in this presentation as far as maintenance goes. So I'd like to impress upon VTA that if you're serious about incorporating the community's wishes in designing the aesthetics of the station, then you also need to fight for those same aesthetics and negotiate in good faith with the community and BART to get these designs implemented, or else we're just all wasting our time trying to design something that BART may put the kibosh on as the ultimate maintainers of the stations. That's all I have.
Gretchen, do you want to speak to that, or should we just take it as comment?
No, let's just take this as comment. I think that that's a good conversation. I think it's important, an important note that we, obviously are working hand in hand with BART on the design and use and accessibility of these stations. So we have partners that we need to consider and make sure that we're consulting as we go through this process.
All right. Thank you, Doug and Peter. Appreciate your help tonight.
Thank you.
Over to you, Erica. Back to you, Rebecca, rather.
Hi, so now I'm going to talk briefly about the access and circulation process. At the next CWG in November, I'll be back again to do a deeper dive into specific details. So today we're not going to cover any of those details yet. So I was last here talking to you all about station access design principles in November of 2019. So I wanted to let you know what we've been up to since then. From March of 2020 to March of 21, the BSV team was focused on revising the station design, which included the track and platform configuration, as well as refining the entrance locations. We also received updated 2040 ridership forecast model information. Since March of 21, we've been meeting regularly with the City of San Jose to discuss station access and circulation design. Based on the updated ridership forecast information, we've revised the bicycle and vehicular needs. In combination with the revised design, we've gone through a technical process with the city, which has included reviewing the adopted city policies and vision, identifying access improvements which support that vision, or at least do not preclude it, and identifying opportunities for future improvements. During the technical biweekly meetings we've had with the city since June for each station, we've established a shared understanding of the basis of design of the station, confirmed the station area vision, and discussed access and circulation features. We've also worked together to identify processes for community and public review and input, such as the Five Wounds Urban Village Plan update, which will be covered later this evening. We're documenting the access and circulation facilities in a basis of city facility design memo that will be included in the RFP for CP4. So we wanted to remind you that this technical access and circulation work is based on the planning principles and the plans and documents shown here for the 28th Street Little Portugal station, many of which you all were involved in the development of. In addition to the planning principles, the station access and circulation features are based on VTA's station access hierarchy, which you can see on the right side of the slide, showing pedestrian and bike access at the top of the hierarchy with vehicular pickup and drop off and parking at the bottom. The slide shows the priorities for the various station access mode. As I mentioned before, we'll get into more specifics at the next meeting in November when I'm back. One of the priorities has been creating, if we can go back to the slide before, please. A pedestrian-focused environment along 28th Street. And for bike access, we're considering access routes and bike parking needs. We're looking at access and circulation that accommodates on-site bus needs and provides strong connections to the transit on Santa Clara Street and Julian McKee. We're also considering Cristo Rey pickup and drop off and looking at minimizing through traffic on 28th Street. And we met with Sylvia earlier today on this topic, actually. In addition, we wanted you to be aware of the various city-led and VTA-led planning efforts that will have more further opportunities for you to provide your input. These planning efforts will feed into the phase 2 design. And Movimiento, which you've heard about here in the CWG meeting several times, was adopted by the city in early 2021. The city plans to commence the Five Wounds Urban Village Plan update, and VTA will be commencing the master planning process for the 28th Street Little Portugal Station in early 2022, both of which you'll hear about in just a minute from Jesse and Charla. Last, I wanted to kind of walk through where we go from here. So at the next CWG meeting in November, I'll be back to provide a deeper dive into specific access and circulation features of the stations, as we're currently still working through some of these items with the city. Then we'll move into city and agency review of the draft RFP, and we'll release the RFP to qualified bidders. We'll continue to work with the city and the contractor on the final design, integrating the planning efforts that I mentioned earlier and the public engagement input related to those. Just Zank from the city of San Jose is here with me to answer any questions that you all may have on the access process.
All right, just looking through, I'm not seeing any questions about the access work. Any CWG members have a question? Okay, not seeing any hands raised or relevant questions in the Q&A box. Thank you, Erica, and
Sure thing.
thanks, Charlotte.
See y'all next month or in November.
Bye. All right, moving on to Charlotte and Jesse.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charla Gomez. I'm a station area planning team lead here at the City of San Jose Citywide Planning Department. This evening, we'd like to give you an update of what's going on with the Five Wounds Urban Villages plan updates and the 28th Street Design Development Framework. So I'm going to do this presentation together with Jesse at VTA. So next slide, please. So there's basically two things we're going to talk about briefly today. Is this the upcoming work related to this area? So number one, we're going to do some updates on the Five Wounds Urban Village plan. And when we say that, includes also other 4 urban villages that were included in the transit-oriented communities playbook. Was endorsed by City Council of San Jose. So just keep in mind that in that. We're also going to do a brief description of what is the Design for Development Framework. So Jesse will talk about that. And as part of all those 2 efforts, we're going to talk about a few things. All the planning efforts that we're doing as part of those 2 efforts. We're going to briefly talk about, or Jesse's going to talk about the FTA award that VTA has is going to help us fund some of those planning efforts. We'll give you a little bit of a specific update about the Urban Village update. I believe Jesse is going to specifically talk about the DDF. And then we're going to conclude with an anticipator schedule of what all these things are going to work together. So next slide, please.
Thank you, Charlotte.
So yeah, this is Jesse. I'll be quiet here.
Thank you, Charla. Separate from the BART Phase 2 planning efforts for the design and construction of the station, VTA's TOD program is planning for the long-term opportunity that the BART station brings to the 28th Street Little Portugal neighborhood. This began with the Transit-Oriented Communities Playbook effort that started in 2018 and completed in 2019. This initial planning effort was funded by the FTA Pilot Grant Program for Transit-Oriented Development. The planning and community engagement efforts resulted in what the VTA calls the Transit-Oriented Community Strategy Study, or the 28th Street Playbook. The opportunity or vision for the 28th Street Playbook is to create a vibrant, mixed-use, pedestrian-oriented neighborhood around the station. Highlighted recommendations from the playbook are what we call big moves that are needed to establish a successful transit-oriented community, such as updated land use regulations, protecting and enhancing the existing small business and cultural centers, and prioritizing funding and implementation strategies for improvements to unlock mobility and access to the station area. The 28th Street Little Portugal Playbook is one of 3 playbooks created for the BART Phase 2 stations. There was also playbooks created for the downtown station and Santa Clara station. And I think you've already jumped to the next slide. Thank you. VTA is the proud recipient of another round of grant funding in the 2020 FTA TOD pilot grant program. The purpose of this program is to provide funding to integrate land use and transportation planning with new fixed guideways such as BART Phase 2 extension. The award breakdown is $1.5 million from the FTA, and combined with our local 20% match, the total budget is $1.8 million. The funding will be directed to 3 efforts across the BART Phase 2 corridor. Our projects include the 5 Wounds Urban Village Plan update that Charlotte's been discussing and will continue to discuss, the Design Development Framework for 28th Street and Little Portugal Station, and the Santa Clara Station Area Specific Plan. I'll pass this next slide on the 5 Wounds Urban Village Plan update back to Charlotte. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Yassi. So in regards to the 5 Wounds Urban Village updates, so just so everybody knows, the city has worked on this urban village for a long time. It was last updated in 2013. And in fact, there was a text amendment also done in 2020. So city has done a lot of work on this. And just to be clear, we're not trying to replace any of that. It's just to build upon all those efforts that have been rooted in the community for a really long time. I think just as part of what we're doing now, because of the vision of the TOC playbook and basically what BART Phase 2 is actually doing, we see the need to expand a little bit about the focus of the scope of those efforts. So the 5 Wounds Urban Village update is going to look at small businesses and the notion of displacement, how that's going to be affected. We're going to be looking at affordable housing also. That includes also displacement. So we have a scope of work that actually is going to talk about those issues. Definitely transportation is one of the stronger components here, and that includes also circulation access that is being coordinated with the BSB2 team, as well as district parking, which is something that came from the TOC playbook. And the city also has a citywide parking reforms. We're looking very, very comprehensively at transportation and parking management as part of the updates. We also heard very loud and clear that stakeholder engagement is fundamentally important in this project. So we're going to looking at building a community outreach plan that's going to synchronize all these efforts. And our hope is to go back to this community working group and do a presentation about what exactly that entails. It's important to keep in mind how all these different scopes of work and related to all the urban village plans that right now we have in the city. So be very clear, when we called 5 Wounds Urban Village update, it refers to 4 urban villages, 5 Wounds, which is the one that is basically directly related to the BART station, Little Portugal, just the other side of the freeway. We have Roosevelt Park, and then we have 24th Street and William. So, and the reason we're doing those 4 urban villages because those were included within the half-mile area radius of the BART station, and they were included in the TOC playbook that BTA prepared with our collaboration. In terms of what the analysis is going to be doing for small businesses, as well as affordable housing in particular, as well as transportation and which are the larger items here, we're probably going to include how that affects Allen Brock in East Santa Clara Street. So city wants to make sure that those kind of like big items in terms of scope of work includes also all those 2 urban villages. So the graphic that you see to the right basically shows very clearly how those different urban villages are located around the BART station, and so basically I'll help you give you a picture of how this is all integrated. Yeah, so next slide, please. Jesse, this is yours.
Thank you, Charlotte. The design development framework for the 28th Street Little Portugal is closely related to the Five Winds Urban Village Plan update, but covers a smaller, more focused study area anticipated to be the future land holdings of VTA post-station construction. You might ask yourself, what is a design development framework? It's a structured framework for the VTA to engage with developers, providing an outline for VTA's desired outcomes for the TOD and a framework for evaluating TOD proposals in the future. The goal of this forward-thinking planning is to establish a flexible framework for future uses and functions on VTA property to create a cohesive, transit-oriented development opportunity and to optimize VTA's TOD outcomes at the station. Ultimately, we hope that VTA's TOD will help to catalyze surrounding development and equitable economic opportunities in the surrounding neighborhood. It's important to note that the TOD at the station will not take place until after the station area construction is complete. However, given all the effort that goes into a successful TOD, we're getting a head start on the planning component now. There are many concurrent projects in this neighborhood. As noted previously throughout this meeting, and as you've heard about significantly in the CWG process, the BART Phase 2 construction is slated to begin in mid-2023, wrapping in mid-2028, followed by testing before opening service. There's also the Five Winds trail design and construction effort. Today, the City of San Jose, VTA, City Parks and Rec, and County Open Space Authority are collectively working on trail acquisition and future design. This dedicated bicycle and pedestrian trail runs along the former UP alignment from William and 23rd Street to US 101. And tonight we have Liz Sewell here from the City Parks and Rec Department if you have additional questions about that part of the project. Additionally, there's the En Movimiento plan. This planning document was adopted by the City of San Jose in early 2021, and it provides a framework for prioritizing and implementing multimodal transportation improvements for the East San Jose neighborhoods. These priorities will be updated, as Charlotte mentioned, through the Five Winds Urban Village Plan update. Next slide, please. We wanted to share our anticipated schedule. The Five Winds Urban Village Plan update and the design development framework are concurrent efforts. Procurement for the DDF, or Design Development Framework, is currently underway, and the Five Winds Urban Village Plan procurement will closely follow. We hope to kick off both projects in early 2022 and wrap both projects in late 23 or winter of 24. With that, thank you for inviting us here tonight to share with you. Charla, Liz, and I are available for questions. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you. Appreciate the update. Looking in the Q&A box, I'm not seeing any questions about the presentation, and it doesn't look like we have any hands raised. So looks like you are free to go. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye-bye. All right, Gretchen, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for coming back. You came back after summer, and welcome to our September Community Working Group. Let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to focus the first few slides on our small business efforts, and then I will change course and give you a more general update. Before we dive into this slide, I really want to acknowledge the hard work that's taken place from many members of this community working group. The 28th Street Little Portugal station area should be quite pleased at how well represented the businesses are in these small business efforts. So just to go over quickly the program goals for our business resource program, obviously we want to make sure that businesses have both visibility and access during construction. We want to provide marketing and technical assistance to these businesses. We need to make sure that we meet our environmental commitments. We've written in some pretty robust environmental commitments, and we are bound to these commitments and to the FTA reporting on meeting these commitments. So we need to make sure that our program hits that mark. We want to make sure that the support that VTA provides is commensurate with the impacts of the project, the actual impacts of the project. And lastly, and this is key, we want to make sure that as businesses, as the BART Silicon Valley project opens, that businesses are able to capitalize on the passengers, on the upgraded infrastructure, and really take advantage of this big public works project. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So we have been hard at work on this program over the summer. As I believe I mentioned in May, we brought on JC Lacey and his team as consultants, and they previously worked on LA Metro's business program. So this is a highly regarded business program that LA Metro has. It's got 3 components. We asked them to come in, examine all of the hard work that we've done so far, meet with the business organizations and businesses along the alignment, and give us some suggestions as to how we move forward. So we brought them on in June. They got right to work. They looked at our environmental documents. They looked at the small business resource study that we completed last year. They looked at the CEOP that you hear me talk about every single meeting for the past several years. And then they got to work talking to folks along the corridor. So we did business interviews with key businesses along the corridor, and I want to thank folks that suggested businesses for us to talk to. We held 2 small business task force meetings, one in June and one in September. We did briefings with the City of San Jose's Office of Economic Development, which was incredibly helpful, both for the conversation that we've been able to have with that team, but also to give JC and his team some additional local context. And JC Lacey and his team did interviews with LA Metro and OC Transit Authority. So a couple things cooking over the summer. We have just gotten draft recommendations from their team. I've got a slide for each here, but you can see that it is comprised of 3 recommendations with a fourth recommendation to examine in the future. That is a virtual business solutions center. This helps fulfill the technical assistance requirement that we have in our environmental document. But more importantly, it helps businesses prepare, weather, become resilient, learn skills that they might need to, and really communicate with us about what they need. So the Virtual Business Solutions Center, despite the word virtual being in the title, will also have an in-person component. The recommendation was to partner with an established local service provider slash and or CBO to help deliver services to businesses. Make sure that we've got individualized one-on-one support to make sure that the services that we're offering match with what the businesses need. Clearly in Santa Clara County, and particularly around our station areas, we want to make sure that we are using a diverse and multilingual approach and going door to door so that we can actually reach folks. And I think Helen and Carlos and Chris can attest to the importance of going door to door. And then the last point, and this has become particularly clear in COVID, that making sure that we've got a web portal in addition to that on-foot resource. That web portal is critical because folks need to have information at their fingertips. It needs to be the right information, and it needs to be on demand as needed. Next slide, please. The second recommendation that was made was to ensure that we have a gangbusters signage and wayfinding program for businesses along our construction staging areas. The recommendations included using local business images, landmarks, artwork, and to maximize the assets that VTA has, our construction staging fences, our buildings, sound walls, and to make sure that we're managing and tracking this activity. Okay. You can go ahead and switch. There we go. I will ask you to look closely at the images in this slide because I I personally think it's funny how clever they are. It's good to see folks have some fun with the local marketing. The third recommendation was to make sure that we have a shop local marketing campaign, and this would be a public-facing campaign clearly designed to increase walk-in traffic and exposure during construction. So this would include heavy content, website, which we have started to talk to VTA IT about developing a website that is dedicated to the businesses along the alignment, a directory, newsletter, digital assets such as ads, social, and then making sure that we're leveraging those digital assets by targeting them through location, demographic, language, and then making sure that we bring on the folks that can show these businesses in the best light, and that would be using professional photographers and videographers. And the last piece, so this piece has an asterisk because we need to wait until we have our progressive design builder on board. This is to evaluate whether or not we are launching additional business support or financial support for businesses. This is something that we've heard from a lot of folks, but as I mentioned, we need to make sure that the support is commensurate with actual impacts. And until our progressive design builder is on board, we cannot ascertain or really forecast what those impacts are going to be with much certainty. So our notice to proceed is issued in April of next year for our progressive design build contractor. They will have some time to mobilize. They will get to work. At that point, we will talk to them about honing in on their construction schedule, on the intensity of the impacts that we anticipate, and then continuing to move forward with evaluating whether or not that fourth leg of the stool is going to need to be implemented. Okay, moving on to additional work that our team has been up to. We have been deeply engaged with our contract package managers. We're making sure that we are building in some mechanisms for community outreach into our contract specs. So that includes, and probably the first bullet point is the most important bullet point, or one of, early notification. We need to make sure that we get notification in enough time to notify you and the community with plenty of time. So that is critical and key in our contract specs, that we are coordinating our construction outreach and also asking for additional feet on the street by way of additional outreach staff as part of that package. We are adding in signage and wayfinding requirements in our specs, as well as obviously incident rapid notification, and then a project hotline email and stakeholder management piece. And then lastly, and probably my favorite, is that we've got some pretty extensive requirements for beautification and aesthetic treatment of construction fencing. I think that we have these beautiful canvases, should we choose to look at them like that. And really glad that we have we've been thinking about the project through that lens. I've also become a little bit of a construction fencing geek, and I have a lot of pictures on my camera roll every time I walk by a project. So in addition to that, we are in the midst of developing a tool that actually came from this community working group. We had a request a while ago to ensure that we have SMS capability for our construction alerts, because that is truly the best way to reach a multilingual audience. Folks might not pop open an email in their inbox, but they will see a text, and if that text has construction impact information, we want them to see it. It also wonderfully dovetails into the back end of our website and into our content management system. So it's all very slick and fancy, and I can't wait to roll it out. It should be finished in mid-2023. We've done a refresh of our website. I encourage you to take a look. There is a lot of information on our website. We probably have about 20 pages of info, from historical information, our environmental documents, information about real estate, sustainability, public engagement and involvement, our CWG presentations, pages for each of the stations. We want to make sure that if folks are looking for information, that it is there and on the website. We're getting ready to do some milestone event planning. This is more talking about than what we've done so far, but we're looking at what do we do that's fun over the next couple of years. We have some real opportunities to celebrate and engage the community as this project moves forward. So we're putting pen to paper to see what the best opportunities are for that. And then finally, as Doug mentioned, tabling at some of the downtown or design review committee outreach efforts. And lastly, or second to last slide, save the date for public meetings. We are holding public meetings at the end of October and early November. These will be online. We will be hosting one meeting in English, and then we will be hosting another meeting in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Portuguese. We are looking at October, we'll send the dates out to you, but it's like an array of days and times over the last week of October, first week of November. And these meetings will be online and accessible after the fact. They'll live forever. We do not have an Eventbrite yet, but we do have a new notification intake form, and you can find that on our website if you go and take a look. And then lastly, our last slide is after those public meetings, we want to take the show on the road. And so we ask you if you're hosting community meetings or organizational meetings after early November, and you would like us to present at those meetings, please reach out. We'd like to make sure that we're out engaging with folks, both through our public meetings and through yours, if the invitation is there. So there you go. That's my presentation. I'll look for questions if you have them.
Thanks, Gretchen. Justin has a question.
Hi, Gretchen. Great
Hi,
presentation.
Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for answering. I wanted to know, I seen some wording, and maybe it's just me looking at wording, but I've seen the construction fences and some of the signage. Is that going to be done through VTA marketing, or are they going to organize that and come up with those images? Is there going to be a request to create those, or is there a community component to that, or is the VTA kind of leading that?
You know, we're still developing what that wayfinding and signage program looks like. It'll probably be mostly VTA marketing led, because we just need to manage the timing and the budget. We're looking at a separate effort also to do additional artwork and signage. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to have an update for you guys on that. And that would be a true community effort. But that's my sneak peek, but we won't be able to talk to you about it until probably February.
All right, I do appreciate that. As a follow-up, is there a way to get, I guess, some communication? I mean, you guys are all already doing a lot of community outreach, so you might have a lot of that information present. But if there is a way to get that some community voice involved in that, whether it's volunteer or just some sort of feedback, I think that the purpose of putting these fancy construction, not fancy, but aesthetic construction, is to encourage some of the consumerism, or to support the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if they're too much, if they're not appropriate for the area, they won't, they'll feel a little bit like gentrification coming in and whatnot. So just as long as there is some sort of community voice or community person that they can reach back out to continue those
pieces. Yeah. So Justin, we have a couple of components in the specs, and one is like a printed, screen, a printed screen specification, and then the second is the ability to put murals up on the fencing. So there's a couple of different ways that we want to hit this opportunity, not this problem. We want to make sure that we do have professionally printed project information, photographic images, but we did add like a pot of funding specifically for local muralists. So this is not all going to be BTA marketing. I was thinking of the fence, what is it, Skrill, Joe? What's the Scrim? The Scrim will be professionally produced through VTA's marketing. The mural component will likely be through a community process. And then we've got a second placemaking process that's underway that I'm hoping we'll be able to talk about later next year. You're welcome.
Great. Over to Carlos.
Okay. I just want to reiterate that I support the what Justin's been talking about. So you took a lot of what I was thinking. So thank you. It was very intuitive what you were saying and important. I think the SMS alerts are going to be real important to do it in that way. Because that's a way that many of us are alerted quickly, as opposed to other forms. And then we do need to have all the basics covered, like the quick response, the boots on the ground with the reps to answer our questions, the funding and all that. But I think also thinking outside the box, I think it was important to kind of think about ways to celebrate milestones and things of that nature, because there's going to be some negativity, so we want to inject positivity as we go along, and get especially from those of us that are kind of leading things to have a way to well, I would say to keep things on track and keep like a positive vibe going, so that it just kind of doesn't stay one way. So that's kind of going over and above. So I look forward to seeing and maybe working with some of that.
Carlos, I really appreciate your comment, and I just want to share, this has been kind of rattling around in my head for the past day or so, is the need to crowdsource and have a bit of a brainstorm on these milestone events. I've been thinking about, how do we do this, and when do we do this, and what's the format, and how do we integrate getting ideas with budget realities. And I think what I'm going to ask is the CWG to I'm always at these meetings, I'm always the last speaker. I'm going to ask community working group members to think about milestone events, and let's have a discussion during my presentation in November, and we can put some ideas on paper, and hopefully at that point I will have fleshed out this thought, because I would love to hear from the community your thoughts on what we can do for a milestone event. That doesn't mean we can do all of them, right? But I think that getting that brainstorm and really talking it through is a critical first step. So awesome comment, Carlos. Thank you so much for both your comment and for your hard work on this project.
You're welcome.
Okay, Gretchen, not seeing any other hands raised. Let's move into CWG member report back. Okay, just moving down the list. Let's get started with Bill. Bill, do you have any updates?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. Carlos, any updates to share?
No, not at this time.
No worries. Chris.
Actually, I'm muted. Am I muted?
You're unmuted. We can hear you.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Oh, great. Thanks. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dustin and Carlos, for that. We're on the same page with what Gretchen was talking about, as far as the marketing in the future. So I'll just reserve that for later. As far as reporting, I'm still trying to get most of the businesses reactivated. Unfortunately, a lot of people are still in that COVID mode and trying to recover from where they are. I'm working, I don't want to say single-handedly, but I'm trying to find a way, and I do have somebody that's helping me about this man that's suing small businesses. Everybody knows him, Scott Johnson. And unfortunately, 2 more businesses were sued last month in our corridor for not being ADA compliant. And again, we know what he's doing is not illegal. It's just the way that he goes about it is really tacky and immoral. So I'm going to keep working on that, and also still spreading the word. And I'm hearing a lot of buzzwords now this year about the VTA and BART and the whole bit, but nothing negative, which I think is hopeful. A lot of newcomers have moved in our area. From my estimate, from me being open since June 15th, when the governor reopened our state. Hey, I'm happy. I've counted 36 new people that have moved in our area. So 36 new people know about BART VTA, and that's a good thing.
Great, thank you so much, Chris. We have Sylvia here representing Cristo Rey.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to say hi. This is my first time coming to these meetings, and I'm the new president of Cristo Rey San Jose, and really looking forward to working with this group. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sylvia. Welcome. Let's see, moving on. I'm not seeing Connie and Danny. Danny, are you still here? Have you dropped off? No, it looks like we've lost Danny. David.
Yes, on September 12th, we posted a link to the Pinpoint Survey site on the Five Wounds Portuguese National Church Facebook page. And it got a share, and it got some interest. Hopefully it drove some traffic to the Pinpoint site so that people could leave their comments and impressions about the aesthetics of the 28th Street Little Portugal station, as well as any of the others that they wanted to comment on.
Great, thank you. We appreciate that. I'm not seeing Elma or Eric. Helen, do you have an update for us?
No, I don't. Carlos already said about the positivity, but we've been talking to some clients that I have that is also have a business on Island Rock. And I'm just talking that they're concerned about the traffic and all the information. A lot of people didn't know about the construction, but I've been talking to them. So the only thing, I don't have much. Thank you.
Thank you. I did see Dee on earlier. Dee, are you still with us? Oh, it looks like we've lost Dee. Justin, over to you.
Thank you for that. There isn't much feedback at this moment, I guess, in organization-wise, but a lot of people are, and I guess in my group, are still wary of, you know, the type of traffic that'll come down to San Jose. So some of the people I'm, you know, like the previous comment, just the influx of traffic and just having some of the people that ride BART now have access and flood into San Jose. So there is a little bit of the social angst as it approaches. Also, we are going to be starting a new art project on the east side, and then you know, especially just with what Gretchen had done, is that we'd like to invite you out to some of those to propose and some, you know, ease some of those worries and try to conversate some of the benefits, overwhelming some of their anxieties. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Sorry, there was a very strange noise in my building just then. Startled me a little. Looks like we don't have Matt. So moving down the line, Ricardo, do you have an update to share?
No updates at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Terry, to close us out.
Okay, 3 quick points. We did post the Pinpoint survey to the BART Transit Village Advocate email list. And BART Transit Village Advocates has been monitoring 10 development projects that are somewhere in process, only 1 or 2 under construction in the urban villages that we care for, the ones that we're going to be updating the plans for. So a lot's happening. So it is important that those plans get updated and we be watching what goes on in and around the urban villages. There really is, I think, a surge of interest just in this last year. And finally, Liz Sewell was here earlier. We should note that the city of San Jose has started a planning process for the Five Wounds Trail at the southern end from Story Road up to Whitten Street. The first meeting had 49 participants, so a good turnout. Second one is September 30th. We're hoping for the same kind of turnout there. That's my report.
Thank you, Terry. All right, and so let's move on to our next step slide. Oh, Bill, sorry. Bill, you have your hand up. Let's just pop back, and Bill, over to you.
Just a quick observation. I would like to know who's on this meeting. You know, if we could in the future have a participants list, that would be very helpful, I would think.
Sure, we'll take that on board. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, so coming for our next meeting on November 17th at 4 o'clock. As always, we'll have a CWG member report back. We'll have the phase 2 update, more information about the station access, community engagement. So that was where Gretchen was talking about maybe the opportunity to discuss some milestone event planning. And we'll also have an update on the real estate and transit-oriented development. So thank you for, oh, Carlos, you've got, nope. Okay, sorry. So thank you to everyone that participated tonight. Carlos, you are welcome to close us out.
Okay, one question before we leave. The biggest question on everybody's mind always that I run across is, like, when do we expect, like, the big heavy machinery and construction and the digging and the you know, all the debris and all that? Like, do we have kind of like at this point something where we could say, hey, it's going to be spring of so and so, just to kind of you know, answer that concern for people, or give them a little update on where kind of we're at with delays and what have you?
So I think, and Erica, if you're on, give me a hand here, but so as John was saying earlier, John's contract package is tunnel and track work, and they will be coming on board. We're issuing a notice to proceed in April, and then they have some time to mobilize. They have a few months to mobilize, and as he mentioned, that first tranche of work that they're doing is what we call preparatory or enabling works, right? So they're going to come in, they're going to advance the design because it's at a very low level of design, and then they'll do some utility work. They may do some building demolition, some kind of early work, but we don't anticipate any work beyond that until later in 2023. Now, I'm hedging right now because clearly we need to have the progressive design builder on board before we say with any certainty, right? We can tell you that projects that we see that may look like this, it's reasonable to expect that this is the work that will be done, but we don't want to say this is exactly what's going to happen. We do know that before they get in and they generate the nightmare scenario that you're referencing, that I think we're going to have some work to dispel that or to clarify what that looks like, right? But we have to have some time to let the PDB come on board, do the work that they need to do to advance the design and advance their schedule and their timeline and phasing. But believe me, we fully intend on making sure that folks have as much notice as possible. But I don't see anything like that happening before later in 2023 at the earliest, and likely not on the eastern side of the alignment. Does that help?
So the answer could be at the earliest in late 2023?
Yeah, but I again, I know folks really want to know this answer, but the end of it is, you know, the long and short of it is that we don't know what that answer is, right? And so we don't want to tell folks XYZ because we really need to have our progressive design builder on board.
Okay.
It's
So
not
after
not in the
2020,
next, yeah.
wait, after 2022 is accurate.
Yeah, well, I think
Okay,
that the
so we got
accurate,
we have another year or so before we start, you know, going into any of that.
yeah, I think the
Okay.
accurate answer is that as we hear information, we will share it with you as soon as we possibly can.
Okay.
Right, but that's, I want to know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Helen, we will take your question.
I have some people asking me if I had the list of if I know which business are gonna need to be relocated, if we have addresses. We don't know, right, at this point.
We have a real estate page on our website. Every business, I believe every business that needs to be relocated for this project has been communicated with when we did our public engagement for our relocation plan. So if folks haven't gotten a letter and they haven't been communicated with, they are likely not getting relocated. And if you have specific folks that are nervous or want information or context, Helen, I'm happy to email or call them or connect them to our real estate folks.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll see you again in November, if not on other channels. Goodbye now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Bye, Gretchen.
Chris.
Take